Welcome! You've come to the right place. This is where you find street smart success. We're doing, folks, with you possibilities to prosperity. I've got my friend Robert Butwin in the background. I'm Kurt Roskopf co hosting with him, and we're going to have guests. Melissa Heathers come in here. I just want to let you know a little bit of the background of this. We work with a friend of ours by the name of Mark Balin. He has On the Mark TV, and Robert and I know each other from the Happy Neighborhood Project with Edwin and our Chief Happiness Officer and everything. Mark your calendars. March 20th with Edwin is International Day of Happiness. And so what we had here is Mark Balin went to Happy Neighborhood Project, ended up taking an opportunity to talk one-to-one with Robert, and then they had conversations one after another after that. And then sure enough, these guys are talking about me, and so there's a little instigation there, and Robert's here as a guy who just wants to help us out, share his life journey, his run in the streets and all the things, and just helping share how he has learned success happens. So he's got some thoughts for tonight that he hasn't revealed yet. So we're going to be learning what's between Robert's ears right along with the rest of you. So Robert, come on in here. Thanks for giving us the privilege to do these sessions with you and take a look at your book and everything else here. Look at that JFA.tips. We know that's from our friend James Feldman, set you up with that, I know. But all the ways we can get smart success. And now, as they say, it's always good to get it from the horse's mouth. And so your mouth is here. What do you got, Robert?
Well, let's start off with synchronicity. And why is synchronicity so important? Well, first of all, it's and you sort of alluded to the fact, Kurt, of how we met. You were doing your normal things, just referring a friend of yours, a guy that you really knew, to something that you knew that was going to help him. And I've known Edwin for a long period of time. So, in support of and belief and now knowing what he was doing, it was something I was quite often a part of. And even though we hadn't really necessarily developed the relationship at that point in time, but we were, in the same areas and hanging out in the same places, but through a common friend. And again, this is synchronicity of how we actually met. And sort of through that conversation, and as we've gotten to know each other better, we decided how could we have more impact with more people? And knowing that you are a master at, and you've got many different quality podcasts, and you've got a whole team of people around you that can help people get more visibility because, part of the key in everything is what worked in the past. Yes, the foundations are still there, but, things are continually changing as it relates to everything that's going on. So when I started taking a look at possibilities, and taking a look at what were my options, how could I get away from our family business? They started the high school award cheerleading jacket business. The challenge was there was too much family in the family business, and I was looking how to get away from that, and I was looking at the different possibilities, and I ended up ultimately running a nightclub. That wasn't my way, but there's always different possibilities. And as we're talking about possibilities, today there's more possibilities than ever before. I believe ultimately it's actually easier to become successful more than any other time in history. And as I say that, there are their own unique set of challenges. But we're taking a look at prosperity, because prosperity, it's possibilities to your pathway to, to prosperity. And prosperity means different things to different people. Having the health, having the relationships, having the wealth, whatever that means to you. And it's what is your pathway? And I know one of our guests, that's, we'll bring her up a little bit. I had a conversation with her earlier, and we were talking about the number eight. And I've got eight different P's, and we're not going to cover them all today about the eight P's to creating a prosperous life. See, when I started my journey, and I sort of alluded, it was in 1984. And I didn't gain my freedom until 1990. But the point was, when I started it, I had some kind of clarity, some kind of intent. I had some kind of strategy. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. So, I mean, I've thrown out a lot at this point. I don't know if you want to jump in, but otherwise I can continually go as far as some of the things, I've sort of alluded to at this point.
Yeah, well, I think what we're gonna do, Robert, we're gonna bring Melissa in here. I think it's always great to get any initial reaction. You got us thinking, Robert, for sure. So, Melissa, what does all that do for you? It sounds like you've had a little insight to what was going on here more than I did. So, but what are you thinking, Melissa?
Well, I'm thinking the synchronicities have aligned for me, and I've met you previously, Kirk, and then Robert earlier tonight. And as soon as he said 8 is my favorite number, I knew like this man is aligned, and I can feel how my synchronicity and the synergy aligned with him, as well as you, Kurt, when we first met. So there's a lot of meaning in synchronicity, and it's just this series. You know how they say a series of unfortunate events? Well, when you're open and you're aligned with yourself, you can have a series of fortunate events through synchronicity. So thank you for having me here.
Well, and let me,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I was going to expand upon it because you and I just met yesterday at the Easy Way Network, and this is
Yeah.
going to be besides being broadcast on the Mark TV at Easy Way. And you made one comment that I sent you a direct message. We need to meet. And again, you sent me the calendar. Again, this is part of synchronicity.
Yeah.
So you sent me your calendar and I didn't wait. I seized the opportunity, and it wasn't to try to sell you anything. It was to ultimately, you know, explore a possible collaboration. So, but that's part of how synchronicity works.
Yeah, and it leads into connection. And connection's huge in my world. So I just try to be open to all of it. So
Yep.
Exactly. Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, so long-standing rule of thumb about human nature and finding your right way to work in synchronicity and not get ahead of the game is one rule of thumb is AIDA, AIDA. The idea is that as we're with each other, there's things that happen that we get each other's attention. And then we kind of get that notion like, oh, maybe I share some interest with Melissa. Maybe what Robert said there, I'm interested. So attention, interest, and then it progresses a little further with that. You get more confirmation, affirmation, and then it gets into our desires. And then that's where we're getting towards the convergence of action to actually do something together. And so that's a little guide that a lot of times in human behavior, when you're not practiced or rehearsed or working under any principle and you're just kind of going in a fury and you're just going after it, you can dive into the middle and then it can be that wonky thing because if you're just going right in for a call to action, like buy my book or be a part of this big event with the television network and it only will cost you $1,500, but it's going to be really worth it. It's just really hard to, get that impulse purchase, as a practice to keep doing that. And then everybody's personality resonates differently because as much as we say these rules, there are people out there that prove that they have a knack to make it work to just jump in, connect it, and kind of make things happen and kind of bypass some rules that a lot of the others of us follow. And it's like, okay, great for the people who make that happen, and it can be their shtick and their claim to fame, success, and it's something that works for them. Even though something can work for one person, to not necessarily say that okay, that's the one size that fits all.
hmm
That's not true. So that's
hmm
part of this community. Like at Easy Way, when we build the Easy Way family, like last night we could look at a crew of 20 plus people on the screen and it was 20 different ways to come in to do almost the same thing. We all have a different value proposition, but we're all coming in to share it and then see what the other 20 some people are going to do with what we do. So Robert, what do you say about that in terms of playing a room? Like how do you do that in group dynamics?
Well, first of all, that reverts back to synchronicity. If you just show up. And it's like Melissa made one comment about looking for something. So my first thing when we started off was delivering what she said she was interested in. As that conversation continued, she happened to mention that she was looking to segue from where she is to a life of freedom, where she didn't have to trade time for money again. So part of it is listening, taking action. You're talking about the eight of principle, which totally believe in and understand, and I could relate very much so. But I didn't try to start pitching her about how to do it. I mean, I know that I went through that whole process in 1984. Now, it took me 6 years, and part of the reason why it took me so long is I started off, I created a tremendous amount of debt. And see, anything and everything along the process is there to serve you. I don't say people need to
Mhm.
create debt to become successful, but I can be more empathetic and listen and understand as other people are going to go through that journey. So, and again, that set the stage for a possible further conversation because I remember when I started and I realized, and this is part of what where I said that I believe it's easier to become successful today than any other time. I started listening to cassette tapes, CDs, buying books, attending events. Well, today you can get almost all of that at no cost. For example, on the Mark TV and a variety of other places, YouTube, whatever. But one of the people I listened to way back when was Jim Rohn. He said, if people believe the promise, they'll pay the price. And then he went on to say, if you work hard in your job, you'll make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. So that was start of my beginning process. I started to focus on how could I improve our skills. And this is part of one of the reasons why I think we, meaning Kurt, you and I relate so well, is because, we've always worked hard on ourselves to be of service to other people. But again, it's, jumping in, focusing on, and by the way, promise, price, those are two of the eight P's in the, key to creating a prosperous life. You got to show up, you got to take action, you got to be there to be of service and value to other people. So I'm not sure if that answered, the question that you did, but it's like even when you said, "Hey, we should probably do some podcasts," and I know one of the key aspects to be successful because almost every entrepreneur is looking for more visibility so they can have more credibility, so they can have more connectivity. And so when you said maybe we should do a podcast because both of us want to serve people. We want to help more people go from, wherever they are as far as just existing, treading water, trying to figure out how to get to that life of a freedom in going from freedom to contribution. So hopefully that, so to speak, gave you some insight, or if nothing else, I'll give Melissa some things she might want to talk about. Because this is Ask Me Anything, or Ask Us Anything, not me, it's us.
Oh, I have so many racing thoughts, and they've been racing since we met earlier, Robert, and even with you, Kurt, a few weeks ago. The call to action for me is started from a higher power, whatever you believe in. For me, it's God. And then I did it. I did my purpose, authorship, and I love it, and it's my heart. But when you have a call to action, you need intention and you need support. And I was missing that a year ago. And now I have it. And now it's growing even bigger because I've worked so hard on myself before my call to action for purpose and serving came. Everything you're saying is resonating so deeply today. So thank you. If that made any sense, but
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, it made total sense because you just hit another P, which is purpose. Understanding your purpose. When I started my journey, my purpose was make enough money so I didn't have to work a job. But I remember when I originally started, I was walking with the lady that I ended up marrying. This was before we got married. And we were walking across from where she lived in a really nice, serene kind of an environment. And I turned to her and I said, there's nothing or nobody that's going to stop me from succeeding. You talked about intention. If you're really clear on your intention and then having the support, which is what you also mentioned, one of the things I realized I could not have accomplished or will even accomplish more as it relates to where I am compared to what I'm looking to accomplish without the right relationships. People like
Hmm.
Kurt and Sue, his wife, my wife, uh, you know, Kurt mentioned Mark Beelan or my other business partner that I met through networking, James Feldman. I could go on and on about the relationships and the team of people that I've attracted. Sue Wilhite, who's another person that does a lot of my tech, because I stay in my highest income producing activities, which is talking to people and developing relationships. Because I know that with all this things going on, AI and all the confusion, it still gets down to human relationships.
Hmm. I think
There,
that's
there
more
you
needed. Sorry, Kurt. This is going to say the way the world is and AI, human to human relationship and connection in today's world is so powerful and so needed. So thank you for bringing that up.
there you go. So I'm going to add a little twist to this. Well, first of all, I'm thinking that I've got an alliteration with all your eight P's. This is not one of the P's, but I think a producer. And I'm going to say producer because you mentioned my wife Sue, and Sue is, in here ready to go. Let's bring in my wife Sue Roskopf here, our resident producer, and we're going to do a little different twist because we're talking about AI, human relationships. Sue works at Carroll University in Waukesha, Wisconsin, in the life sciences area, the biology department, and she does these intro to biology labs, and she helps work study students come in and be a part of the lab management and all of the things. So I'm thinking that relationship with microorganisms, Sue. You know a little bit about that?
Relationship with microorganisms, absolutely. They grow on you.
Yeah. So yeah, and we had quite a day today in our podcasting world. Sue heads up every day, the 12 o'clock shakedown. It's 12 o'clock Central. She does a 45-minute facilitation of 15 minutes of music and motion,
Mm.
15 minutes of highlights for the day, including what we celebrate, how we celebrate our foods and our customs, what the global awareness is, national holidays, birthdays of celebrities, musicians, so on and so forth, and then suggesting 15 minutes of social time where at Shakedown we introduce you to new friends. We had, Edwin we were on with earlier today with the Happy Neighborhood Project with the HMP Worldwide Zoom event. And then we had Paige Spears did a fantastic session with another one of our derived friends from HMP, Dr. Harvey Loomstein, and they just went full gusto, a lot of insights, a very unique experience to see Dr. Harvey Loomstein talk with Paige Spears and how Paige was really they're putting Dr. Harvey Loomstein's training to the test right there. And he did such an excellent job. And I think I understand his practice more than I ever did before because of this format, podcasting. It's just interesting what this does compared to, just being in a bubble where it just stays right here. When you speak to the world, it
Hmm.
starts to get a little bit larger than life. And I think it just, that resonance of truth just tends to come out in there because we're putting it to the test of where it might get consumed across 8 billion people on the planet. That's kind of where we're thinking today. But Sue, what are your thoughts in terms of, we got our friend Robert here, Street Smart Success, possibilities to prosperity, and we're talking tips, tricks, techniques, and building relationships. You moonlight with us here. You've got a 9 to 5 job, so to speak. With the university thing, you're kind of in there where you're in management, where you gotta just get the job done. Carroll University just wants Sue Roskopf to get it done, however she's got to get it done. But and you were listening to a lecture today, Sue. What was that all about?
Actually, we're working on hiring right now. So we've got
Oh, it's
one,
hiring. Oh, I thought
yeah,
it was
one
a
person is
lecture.
retiring, so we're working to find a good replacement, which is hard because somebody who's been there for 30 some years, they're not replaceable, really. You lose so
So,
much.
so Sue, let's use that. What are
Hmm.
some tips, tricks, techniques, and principles when you are bringing in strangers into the work of the university. Talk to us about that. What do you do? How do you help the university find that right person, that good fit? Tell us about this, Sue.
Ooh. Well, actually, it's a process. An interview is not just an hour; it is a full day event,
Mhm.
and they are scheduled from first thing in the morning, having breakfast with students, to the different folks that they have to meet throughout the day at all levels at the university. And we're biology and we've got lab space. So part of my role is giving them a tour of our facility and making sure that whatever their research is actually fits with where do we have what they need to be functional. And then they do a mock class because they're going to teach, so they come in prepared to actually teach a lecture like they normally would, and then we get a feel for what is that like. And it is a long, exhausting day for folks when they come in, but you really do get a good feel for a person over the course of a day like that, and they get a good feel for us too, because interviews go both ways. You know, the whoever's coming in needs to feel like they would fit in that space as well, because if you it's one of those, when I look at the three people that came in, I definitely see one that stands out above the other two, and I am hoping that that person is seeing it the same way, and that those others on campus that got to meet the person and have that chance to interact are in the same and feeling the same way as well. So it's a long, complicated process. Anything on a campus kind of is. I'm gonna flip back for just a quick second though, because it just so happens with things to celebrate today. One of the items on the list is work your proper hours day.
Wow.
So what do you think about that? The little blurb, it says, imagine a world where you work just the right amount of time to get everything done and still have time left over to do the things you love. Isn't that everybody's hope and
I love
dream right
that.
there? Today's the day to celebrate that. So I think that goes hand in hand with Robert, with what you do and street smart success. And
Well,
I thought that was perfect.
and I want to comment about a couple different things. Obviously, celebration about, I mean, that's very important as it relates to anything and everything that you do. One of the things that my initial mentor told me, you have to have the attitude of gratitude. Be
Yeah.
grateful for where you are as you're going to where you deserve. Now, I want to allude to something that Kurt said that sort of segues into you, Sue, for a second. He talked about producer. Actually, producer is a subset of another P, which is your partnerships. A producer is definitely, because it's developing the team of people around you. And then Sue hit the nail on the head about another P is your processes, your system. You take a look at virtually any and every successful entrepreneur business. McDonald's was very famous with Hamburger University, but what is the process that you set up as it relates to what you're looking to accomplish? We're all looking to accomplish whatever that is, and you've got to have those processes in place, and you want to continually refine them because we're in a changing environment. The one constant in life is change. It's going to continually happen. So and this is part of where what Melissa was talking about. If you're clear on your intention, knowing where you want to end up. And it's one of the things I remember early on in my career, how to zig in a zagging world. The world, life is going to zig and zag, and you've got to stay focused on the vision as it relates to what you're looking to accomplish.
There you go. So, Melissa, I want to let you do a little sharing here.
Sure.
We're kind of in a spattery of different forms that success is built and relationships. So, when you look at it, like if you do speed networking, or if you're just quickly meeting somebody within 3 to 10 minutes, and then you end up getting their LinkedIn profile. And, so you're just kind of chipping away, getting, kind of a tip of the iceberg awareness of somebody. And then different things happen. You maybe see them at Easy Way, maybe see them in another platform, or, you know, it becomes a different combination where we get different insights of each other, and then to do a follow-up Zoom call,
Yeah.
the one-to-one type format and whatever. So this process takes on many forms, Melissa, speak from your journey in all of this. How do you see that you're driving your success and you're attracting might say, the good fit people into your journey in life and the work that you do? What does that look like for you, Melissa?
Well, I'm a huge person on process in my day job. I think having a process, it sets the foundation. Um, in my world, I just I had to become when I wrote my book, I had to be a different version of myself to be successful with my book. I always wanted to write one, but I just wasn't um there. And I am huge on connection. I don't want a partnership with anybody where I don't have a connection. I don't want to have women on the stage that I've brought to the stage where I haven't fostered that connection and I haven't been a mentor or helped them. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
There you go. So, Robert, what does that do for you as you're here to help us all out and you're hearing that, alignment. I talk about, and I think I maybe said this the last time you and I did this, Robert, with our first episode with Mark, that, you can like think things through and like how your gray matter in here is a part of the process. Then you got your heart. I think
Mhm.
we celebrate, at least in the last half a dozen years, how a lot of us basically fell in love with each other because we were like, it's like great to have so many people who are heart centered and do things for good reasons, altruistically. And then there's the idea of going with your gut. And then we're in a life journey. Like right now, we can look at it there are four souls that are part of this podcast right here. So in terms of putting that all together, Robert, and finding that those people like you found James Feldman, talk to this, Robert. How do you find that, like, that resonance where, the ding, James Feldman's a guy I'm going to really build the future with in a big way? How does that come together, Robert?
Simple but more complex. And let me see if I can try to dress this on a fairly deep level. There are certain people that have got the credentials. They're there. They've got the resume. James Feldman was one of the people that I introduced Melissa to, and you might even know her, Diane Armitage. She mentored under Bob Proctor for 27 years, wrote a lot of Bob Proctor's information. So, that would be another one. So those are the people that they're real simple. They're easy to refer and guide people. Mark Beelan's another one because he's got all this network, or Eric Zuli based on everything that he's got. You know, then there's the other people that that you can be of value to. And one of the things that as you're asking that question, and what thought came to me, and something else said even like Jim Rohn, and quite often I'll refer back to Jim Rohn. He said, if people believe the promise, they'll pay the price. I mentioned that earlier. And then he follows it up with a very interesting question. For those of you that are parents, he says, how long do you want your son or daughter to be in first grade? He says 1 year's enough. That's why they make the desks so small. So part of the whole process is helping people go from being stagnant to taking the next step, back to the babies, crawl, walk, run. So, again, if you've got somewhat some clarity of what your objectives are, the vision, and as you're taking a look at the different people, and one of the things that, as harsh as this may sound, people are always judging you based on what you do or don't do.
Hmm.
One of the key things in marketing is test, test, test. Now, I hated tests when I went through my formal educational process because my mom expected so much and I enjoyed playing. But again, part of when I realized I had to make a change, I realized I had to change my mindset and I had to
Hmm.
catch up for wasted time. But, I also believe that life will continually give you exactly what you need.
Yep.
And it's how to put all those pieces together in a relationship that will be of more service to more people. Hopefully that answered the question in a roundabout way, but I covered it.
I
So
thought it was
all good.
brilliant. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kurt.
No, no. Melissa, anything else you wanted to add? Did that bring anything to mind to you, or not necessarily?
I just think like attracts like, and you have to have an open mindset and the power of the mind and the heart when they're aligned and working together, a whole world of possibilities open up. And it really truly is mindset and mindset shifts when you need them so that you can attract those people into your world.
Absolutely. So, Sue, I want you to come out here a little bit, speak to your journey having a Monday through Friday job at Carroll University, daytime first shift, and then, all the stuff we get you into, like right now in the evening, and tomorrow you're going to be doing the World of Ability podcast, and then we do our water ski club, and, all the things you got to fit in. You got to make all the calls to take care of things here at the house, and so on and so forth. Speak to that a little bit, Sue, and how do you then take the many hats you wear, and then come here, show up in networking fashion, and then to keep track of everything because when you're done, you got to move on to all the other things. Speak to that a little bit, Sue. How do you make building relationships work when you're so busy with everything else?
That's a loaded question. It's hard. I'm not going to fake it and say, oh, it's not a problem. It's hard because there's so many different lanes that we are in, right? I've got my full-time job. I got to keep track of stuff there if I want to stay there, right? I got to do all the things. We've got podcasts that are taking place throughout the week. They're fabulous, and we make commitments. We need to fulfill our commitments. We need to show up when we say we're going to show up and do all the things along the way so that we want to be wearing all the hats. We want to, all the cliches. We got to spin no plates. We get all the because it's all in front of us. And that's when you're a person who wants more, you got to be able to realize that it takes doing more than to get there. You got to be willing to maybe have some nights where you're not going to get as much sleep because you know what? You got bigger goals. You got things that you want to accomplish and you don't have to. I mean, I hear it. I've heard it a lot over the years of, I hear you're so busy. You're always so busy. And that's a choice. And it's like, well, yeah, actually it is. It's a choice. I made that choice because I like all these things. I can't imagine not having the job I have at the university because I really, really enjoy it. But I also can't imagine giving up, like our ski club. That's definitely an outlet. That's something that keeps us active and keeps us connected locally here. I can't imagine not doing all the things that we do with all these wonderful people that we get to meet and the podcasts that we do, the guests that come. It's amazing the connections that I've seen happen and the synergy that builds and all those pieces. I can't imagine not doing these things. And so you make it work. You figure out how to do it. You figure out what's it going to take. And sometimes I'm not, again, not going to lie. Sometimes it's really hard, but if it was not hard, then I, is it worth it? Right? You're given things in life that you can rise to. If everything was easy and I didn't appreciate it, I'd be in a different place. So, do I wish it was easier sometimes? Of course, sometimes it's nice to have things just kind of streamlined, but that's why you build a team. We can lean on each other and we can do things together. And if there's a day where I literally am overloaded and I can't, I know there's others around that are like, well, hey, call me up. Let me help you out. Let's work on this together. Let's make it happen. And that's the amazing piece that I've learned with all of the people that we've networked with over the last handful of years here, that people really are looking for others to succeed. People want to help. People want to do good things. And when you have good people that come together, how can it not be good? Right? And coming in here, because I got to say, Robert, I've heard your name so many times in the last, I don't know how many months. And really, you and I have hardly had a chance to talk yet. But I'm telling you, your reputation precedes you. And I'm feeling very blessed to be here. So this is wonderful what you're doing.
Well, we're blessed to have you, and I want to expand upon because, first of all, based on just saying it's hard. And I think today more than ever, people are looking for authenticity. I remember, and as you're saying that, I remember walking off stage. Somebody asked me, was it easy? And I didn't hesitate to think. I said, no, it's not easy. Success, even so I said it's easier today than ever before. It comes with its own set of challenges, but it's worth it once you get to that level. But again, everything that you're going to go through in that journey is there to serve you. And that insight, that wisdom. So, and I believe people are much more intuitive today because of Zoom and everything else, and they're looking for authentic people. And so, especially with the lack of trust going on without getting anything political, all we have to do is take a look at what's happening in the media. And the one thing that we probably can all agree upon is we know that we don't know the truth. What we know is the truth the way the media spins it,
Mhm.
whatever that is. So that's why the human connection is so more important today than ever before. I had talking about that. Let me share with you a premonition that I had. I was in China. And it was after the massacre of the students when they had that uprising. And what came to me is that with people more connected, I thought it was through MLM, but it's just, sometimes what you will initially think or look at things isn't exactly the way it is. But I think based on what happened in 2020 and now everybody's going to Zoom and we've got, I mean, the chances of the three of us ever probably meeting, one another before March of 2020 was probably almost non-existent. But again, I believe if people are connecting with more and more people all around the world, that we have got a better chance of avoiding different wars. And as I say that, I know that there's even that is on the horizons, the possibility of that on the horizons. So, but I think it's really down to human connection.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, Melissa, any reaction to what Sue and Robert have been talking about? If you don't have any
So,
thought, no problem.
no, so much reaction. As women, we wear many, many hats and do many, many lanes. And um, I'm grateful for those lanes. They drive us forward. Because, like you, Sue, I cannot imagine, I can't go back now. I still work 9 to 5 and do my business at night, and I just can't go back. And it keeps pushing me forward, and it pushes me forward to connection. And for me, having powerful connections is really the art of living. Sorry, losing my voice here. The art of living a meaningful life and being your authentic self and standing in that authenticity. So thank you for all your insights.
There you go. So, Melissa, I want to continue with you a little bit. You mentioned about bringing women on stage, and you
Mhm.
want to make sure you bring women on stage that have a connection with you. Can you describe a little bit more of the work you do? Because I think it kind of came out of context for our viewers and
Oh,
listeners. So,
sorry.
explain to the audience what it is you do. What's the stages thing? Why is it just women? Why am I not hearing men? Part of
There
that.
will be men,
There
actually.
will be. See, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I'm a part of the 262 movement with Deb Drummond. I work under Deb, and we do International Women's Summit quarterly because we believe that you celebrate women more than once a year. And so we've decided, or Deb decided to open the stages up to men who support women and have a bigger connection because there's so many men that support women, and we are truly grateful for that. And your voices deserve to be heard on the stages as well. So,
There you go. So, Robert, respond to that a little bit. I think that'd be good to hear you speak to this part of it. You're hearing that Deb Drummond and Melissa Heathers here are opening up the stage to the business of helping women, flourish more and more every day all around the world. As a man, Robert, how do you play into the women's movement? How do you do that, Robert?
I'm 100, 100% behind it. I can, there's no way I would have accomplished what I accomplished without the lady that I ended up marrying. Now, when I met her, she was working in corporate America, and she would tell me about the, so to speak, glass ceilings and how guys got more, so to speak, preferential treatment. And, you know, when I started my journey, because I knew where I wanted to end up, I wanted to make sure she ended up there with me. So I got into personal growth, and I could tell you a story about that, and I'm happy to do that. But I started feeding her some of the things. One of the things that I fed her was, and she worked for John Deere, a little company, they make tractors at corporate, and she was in HR. And so I fed her Tom Hopkins, How to Master the Art of Selling Everything. And so anyhow, after the first things that she did, being very into, she's like a perfectionist. And so she transcribed it for me. So she learned at the same time. And shortly thereafter, her supervisor came to her wanting her to get a decision from somebody. And so she comes back 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, whatever it was. And she had the decision, and her supervisor was dumbfounded. Says, I've been trying to get that decision for like 6 months, and you come back in 10 minutes. How did you do it? She says, oh, I gave him the alternative of choice. Do you want this or this? But again, back to the question, I love women, and whatever I can do to be able to support them. Again, my wife has been extremely instrumental in the success. I don't know if I would have ever accomplished the level of success that I have accomplished without her.
There
So,
you go. There you go. So, what I want to do, folks, is I want to come into a closing segment here. So, Melissa, I want to give you a chance to think about your experience on here. You trusted Robert to come on in, and that this would be worthwhile and fun and whatever you were thinking. But tell us about this experience coming on in here into Street Smart Success and with possibility to prosperity. How have you benefited from the last 45 minutes? Let us know.
Um, Connection and synergy. It was kind of improv. I actually didn't realize it was a podcast. I thought I would be listening to you too. So, yeah, there were so many nuggets of wisdom there, and from service to intention to clarity, and all that it sits with me and resonates with me very, very deeply. So thank you for the opportunity being on your show.
Absolutely. Melissa did very well to
Thank you.
kind of go impromptu, and caught by surprise. You did really well. Everybody thought maybe you were following a script. You were so smooth. Well done. I can tell you are in the show business. All right. So Sue, I want to give you a chance. Sue, you know how we do this thing of final thoughts. What are yours today, Sue?
Well, I'm gonna actually go back to the part where we do the silly celebrations of every day of what is National Day of whatever, and one of one of the other ones on today just fits with what we're all doing here. It's no-brainer day. So it is a day to really take a moment and here, I'm going to just actually read it. It says, take some time on this day to check out from complicated situations and do everything that's simple and easy. Why? Because it's no-brainer day. It's that day to just, do what makes sense. Things like meeting people that can make your life better. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to say, "Hey, what's going on in your world today?" And to take a moment and connect. The whole idea of what Robert has here with Street Smart Success and
Mhm.
plugging into what he's doing here with the podcast, to me, that's a no-brainer. There's lots of names that I heard him say, lots of authors, even Tom Hopkins. I mean, Kurt actually saw, oh, when was that? That would have been, it might have been 20 years ago that he actually attended an event that Tom Hopkins did. And we've heard Jim Rohn in person. We've heard some of those big names over the years. And actually, it was MLM connections over the years where we got exposed to those really inspirational people. And I can't imagine where I'd be today if I hadn't gotten those nuggets of wisdom along the way. They really, really made a difference in my world and how I think about things and how I interact with people and understanding personality types and all those pieces that without that, it would be harder. Those things have made my life better. And I really appreciate that those things have come to me over the years. And even the last thought here with got with the privilege I've had of meeting all the people that have come through with the different shows that we do. I can even say last night that we had two guests on who really their whole mission is to help women and to help them see what's possible and to get unstuck and to make the most of what they everything they were talking about. I'm like, okay, I feel like you're talking. I'm a mirror here. I'm hearing all the things that you're saying, and I'm relating to so many things they're saying. Like there's reason that we all come together and that we can learn from one another and really make life better for each other. And that whole piece of connection and community, that's it. That's what it is. So back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Sue. Wow. Sue packs it in there, doesn't she, folks? All right, so Robert, now it's to you. You had some thoughts coming in here, and in the networking circles throughout your calendar, we bounce you around like a mean pinball, taking full advantage of all your experiences. But now you were here in the last 50 minutes with my wife Sue. What a deal that is, hey? And now we got Melissa Heathers here. You invited her. So you're responsible for her experience, and then you've got your cohort. You instigated this with me, and so Mr. Robert Butwin, you say we can't help but win with Robert Butwin. Give us your final
Definitely,
thoughts, sir.
definitely. And I'm going to play on a couple of the different things that Sue mentioned and even things that we talked about earlier. We've mentioned Easy Way. And
Mhm.
Easy Way introduced me, or should I say Easy Way? Eric Zuley introduced me to John Carr. Now, John Carr, and he's helped give away over 1 billion, it might be 2 billion, maybe 3 billion. I don't know how much. I didn't ask him. But one of the things in meeting John Carr, he happens to live in the same city I live in. And, Sue was talking about some of these great people. And part of John Carr's background, he's I think the last known living person that worked directly with Napoleon Hill. But he also told me about another very famous person, Zig Ziglar. And he says, Zig and John, had a fairly solid, decent relationship, not necessarily worked together. And Zig actually took something that he got from John, and I told him exactly what it was. And this relates to what Sue was talking about, which is you can get whatever you want by helping other people get what they want. She
Mhm.
happened to mention MLM, which to me, MLM is a misunderstood way of making money. I love the acronym of MLM as making life meaningful because it's really based on helping other people and helping other people segue from working a job into creating a life of freedom, taking advantage of the tax benefits that are there that the people that are very rich are, we already know people like Musk, Trump, all those other people are taking advantage of the tax benefits there. So MLM is about that. The point is it's sharing our insights and wisdom because we can't take it with us. It's living that life of meaning based on being of value and showing up and playing full out and figuring out what you can do to help other people because there is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of challenges that people get. And, to me, that's really what makes life a prosperous life because you're showing up, you're authentic, you're not going to, you truly want to be of service. So I guess that's basically, and as it relates to what Sue was talking about, I'm grateful for, Eric Zuli and Easy Way. The connections that we make, you never know who or how or where you're going to make those connections and how you're going to take those relationships to the next level. And that's really what prosperity is, in my mind. Having the right relationships, having that attitude of gratitude. So anyhow, that's how I would sum it up as far as what we've been talking about.
Fantastic, Robert. Boy, we are on our way to do twice a month. Phenomenal stuff here. We've all been at a lot of events. We do a lot of the Zoom things. We've done a lot of podcasts. We're all part of the show business in one way, shape, or form. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in this to make this as unique as possible, adding a wow factor and really packing in the value and putting twists and turns in this that when you're here with us on Friday evenings, you sit back and say, wow, I never got a rendition quite like we just did right here at Street Smart Success, Possibilities to Prosperity. And with Easy Way, we're all going to be on the VIP pitch party on March 12th. So round them up, folks. Round up your friends, make those connections, and people you want to help because we have a saying here in this household. We say, friends don't let friends do things the hard way.
Mm.
We get them in to do it the easy way. And the best way to get started is that VIP pitch party on Easy Way Network, Easy Way TV, Easy Way Wall of Fame. Eric Zuley has it perfectly constructed for us for growth and build that synergy between all of us. I tell you what, when Mark Balin told me, Kurt, why aren't you on the easy way? We got to get you on the easy way. That's all part of the great, uh, you know, suggestions and leadership of Mark Balin. And we've got a big event coming up with Mark Balin and the crew down in Mesa, Arizona. Dink and Dine. That's going to be March 7th and 8th. March
Yep.
7th and 8th at Dink and Dine. And that's going to be the Pickle Brawl 2. There's going to be over a dozen star-studded guests, and there's going to be people flocking there. We're going to pack them in there. It's open to the public. Come on in. The more the merrier. People are going to leave that March 7th and 8th event and be like, woo-wee, what just happened there? I'm more excited than ever before. And then we're going to keep that energy going all the way through the VIP pitch party, and then right back here on Friday the 13th. March 13th.
Ooh.
And do right here live at 5 Pacific time, 6 Mountain time, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. So for Robert Butwin, Sue Roskopf, Melissa Heathers, and me, yippee, we done did it. We'll see you next time.